Shalom Aleichem, peace to you all, and welcome to the first course in Biblical Hebrew Grammar. As you know, there's Hebrew 1 and Hebrew 2, and this is the first part of Hebrew Grammar. In this chapter, in chapter 1, we want to look at the Hebrew Aleph-bet, and you may be wondering, why is it called Hebrew Aleph-bet? It's called Hebrew Aleph-bet because Aleph is the first letter in the Hebrew alphabet, and Bet is the second letter in the Hebrew alphabet. So you have Aleph first, and Bet second. So you have Aleph-bet. And this is similar to the English alphabet because the English alphabet is called alphabet because it's borrowed from the Greek, and in the Greek, the first letter in the Greek alphabet is alpha and the second letter is beta. So you have alphabet, alpha, beta, which basically comes to alphabet. And this is important because if you can say Aleph-bet, Hebrew Aleph-bet, it means that you've already started learning the Hebrew alphabet, because you already know the first and second letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Aleph and Bet. Aleph and Bet. Aleph-bet. And so in this chapter, we want to look at the Hebrew Aleph-bet or the Hebrew alphabet. But just a reminder of the Hebrew greetings that we learned in the previous chapter. We learned how to greet, how to say hello, how to say good morning, how to say how are you, and how to even respond to those greetings. We learned that the first greeting is how to say peace to you, which is similar to saying hello. And so how you say hello or peace be to you in Hebrew is by saying Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. And the second greeting is used when you want to say good morning, which is Boker Tov, Boker Tov. And the third greeting is used when you want to say how are you? And that is to a man, when you want to ask a man, how are you? And that in Hebrew we say, Mashlomcha, Mashlomcha. The fourth one is used when you want to say, how are you, to a female, and you say, Mashlomech, Mashlomech. The fifth one is simply a response to those greetings. How do you respond to good morning, which is Boker Tov? How do you respond to Mashlomcha, which is how are you, to a man? How do you respond to Mashlomech, which is how are you, to a female? Here's what you say, Tov Todah, Tov Todah. And that means good thank you or good thanks. Tov Todah, good thanks. But when you want to revert the greeting, when you want to greet the person back, you say We'ata, We'ata. We'ata means and you, good morning. You say good thanks and you, We'ata. And this is just a review of the greetings that we learned. And I want to encourage you to start using this because the more you use the greetings, the more you speak Hebrew, the more it becomes part of you. Here's a promise that we are making in this course. By the end of this course, by the end of Hebrew Grammar 1, this course, which is Hebrew Grammar 1, you will be able to read a Hebrew passage like this one. And this one is from Joel, should be Joel chapter 1. And not only read it, you'll be able to translate it, you'll be able to preach from the text, and you'll be able to explain the text. You'll be able to exegete the Hebrew. And this is the value that this course brings. This is more than a course. It's meant to shape you, it's meant to guide you, it's meant to introduce you to the Hebrew grammar, so that that information can help you in shaping your sermon, can help you in enhancing the teaching of the Bible. So right now, as you're looking at the text, it looks confusing, but at the end of this course, Biblical Hebrew 1, you'll be able to translate this, you'll be able to read this, and you'll be able to preach from the text. But this all starts from learning the alphabet because the alphabet is the foundation to learning Biblical Hebrew. So let's get to the alphabet. Before we proceed, here's an overview of what to expect in this chapter, in chapter 1. And this is what this chapter will accomplish. At the end of this chapter, you should be able to write the letters of the Aleph-bet, the Hebrew alphabet, in order. And at the end of this chapter, you should be able to name the letters, name them, mention their names. And finally, at the end of this chapter, you should be able to understand what a dagesh dot is and what its function is. We understand what all these things mean. And so let's get started. And as we start, here are important things to know. Here are 4 things you should know. The first thing is that Hebrew is written from right to left. And this is something that is so different to an English speaker. Because in English, you read and write from the left side going to the right side. But in Hebrew, you write and read from the right side going to the left. So it's more like a swap of the English. And just to repeat, in Hebrew, you read from the right to the left. And that is something that the English mind needs to adjust to. Okay, so in Hebrew, you read from right to left, and you write from right to left. We're going to see how this applies. The second thing is that Hebrew alphabet contains only consonants. So that means that there are no vowels in the Hebrew alphabet, but only consonants. Unlike English, English has A, E, I, O, U, and those vowels are part of the English alphabet. But in Hebrew, you only have consonants. The vowels are separate from the consonants. And we're going to look at the vowels in our next chapter, which is chapter 2. But in chapter 1, we want to deal with the consonants. And we're saying, when you look at the Hebrew alphabet, the Aleph-bet, you only have consonants. And the third thing to note is that Hebrew alphabet has only 22 letters. Unlike the English alphabet, which has 26 letters, the Hebrew alphabet only has 22 letters. And at the end of this chapter, you need to know how to write the 22 letters, how to pronounce them, how to tell them. And this means that you need to find a paper and a pen and start looking at how it's written, how it's read, so that you can practice, practice, and practice. And the last thing to note is that there are no capital letters in the Hebrew, only small letters. So unlike the English alphabet or even the Greek alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet has only small letters. There are no capital letters. Even when you're mentioning names of people, you're dealing with small letters, which is something that is helpful. So you don't have to learn capital letters from small letters. You only have to learn one form. That means no capital letters, only deal with small letters. Alright, now that this is out of the way, let's get into the Hebrew alphabet. I want you to pay attention as we look at the alphabet. And as I said, it is called Aleph-bet. The Hebrew alphabet is called Aleph-bet because the first letter of the alphabet is Aleph and the second letter of the alphabet is Bet. So you have Aleph-bet. And that gives you a head start on knowing the first two letters of the alphabet. And for each letter of the alphabet, here's what you see on the screen. On the middle there, you have the alphabet letter. And under the alphabet letter, you have the sound. And that is the sound guide. Sound guide will be underneath it. And that will be guiding you or telling you how to pronounce the letter. And on the side here, you're going to have its transliteration. Transliteration is basically how the letter looks like in the English. When you take the Hebrew alphabet letter, transliteration is simply how it's going to appear in the English. For now, I want you to pay attention to how it's pronounced and how the letter actually looks like and how it's written. And up there, you're going to have its transliterated English form for you to pronounce. That is going to guide you on how the Hebrew word is pronounced. For example, in this case, you have Aleph, Aleph. Don't worry about the Hebrew part. Just focus on how the transliterated part looks like. Aleph. And two things to pay attention to for now. Know how to write the letter and know how it sounds. Know how it's pronounced. And on the screen, you'll be seeing how to write the letter. Just follow along on your paper. You can get a piece of paper and follow along and try to imitate how the letter is written. So let's get started. The first letter of the Hebrew alphabet is Aleph. Aleph. And Aleph is not pronounced, meaning that it's silent. And there are two letters on the Hebrew alphabet that are silent, meaning they don't have sound. They get their sound from the vowels that are under or next to them. Think of Aleph like the English word honor. Honor. You have H in front of O there, and H is silent, but it's standing there. So that is how Aleph also works. It's silent, gets its sound from the vowels that are next to it. It's a silent letter. Aleph. Aleph. And just to point out some things before you move on, you may find it helpful to learn the letters in groups. You may group them in groups of 5. You get the first 5 groups and learn them. Then you move on to the next 5, just like that until you finish the alphabet. And also many people learn them in a song. So on the platform, you're going to see a linked song to the alphabet that will guide you on learning the alphabet easily and faster. This is how Aleph is written. Let's move on. Our second letter is bet, bet. And bet has a sound. Bet sounds like B as in boy. B, b. B as in boy. And what is interesting to note about the Hebrew alphabet is this, that the names of the Hebrew letters are simply words that start with that sound. So when you're looking at the second letter bet, the letter bet begins with sound B, which is matching how its name is pronounced. Bet, bet, B. So in short, to get the sound of the letter, you focus on the name of the letter. For example, in this case, you have bet, which gives it the B sound. B, bet. And that just makes you learn the Hebrew alphabet easily and faster. And this is how bet is written. Notice the best line goes beyond the beat. Notice that corner there. That is going to separate it from the letter kaf. So this is how bet is written. So the second letter is bet, and the sound is B as in boy. Let's move on. The third letter is gimel, gimel. And gimel sounds like a G, G as in girl, G as in girl, G. That is gimel. So again, the sound of the letter is gotten from how the name is pronounced, gimel, which is G. That G sound is how you pronounce the letter gimel. And on the screen, you'll be seeing how to write the letter. Just follow along on your paper. You can get a piece of paper and follow along and try to imitate how the letter is written. This is how gimel is written. Our fourth letter is dalet, dalet. And dalet has a sound of D, the D sound. D as in dog, dalet. And follow along, see how it's written and practice to write it. Learning a new language is about practice. Practice, practice, practice. This is how dalet is written. Notice the top line goes beyond the beat. Letter number 5 on the Hebrew alphabet is hey, hey. And hey has a sound of H, as in hey or how. That H sound is what hey sounds like. Hey, hey. Again, follow along and see how it's written and practice. This is how hey is written. Notice that gap there. It leaves a gap there on top. That is very important for hey. Letter number 6 is wow, wow, wow. Sounds like W, sounds like W. It's W as in wow, wow. And here are some things to say about the letter wow. In the older traditions, especially Semitic linguistic and biblical studies, it's often called wow with a W sound. Though in modern Hebrew today, it's usually called vav with a V sound. And in some textbooks, you see it having a V sound. It will be labeled as vav. But wow is the correct pronunciation. And here is why we have differences. In biblical Hebrew, the original sound was most likely a W. And over time, especially in later Hebrew and in modern Hebrew, that sound shifted into a V sound. That's why many scholars today pronounce it as wow, but modern Israelis say vav. So in this course, we're going to use the wow sound. We're going to pronounce this letter as wow with a W sound. And again, notice how it's written. And this is how wow is written. Letter number 7 is Zayin, 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 Zayin. Zayin sounds like Z, It has the Z sound, Z as in zebra. Zayin has the Z sound as in zebra. And notice how it's written. This is how Zayin is written. Zayin has a top line and a line that is coming down. The top line is a bit bent and the line that is coming down is straight. That is how Zayin is written. Letter number 8, we have Khet. Khet. And on this one, you have to pay extra attention. Khet. Khet. It's not ket or het. It's Khet. Right in between the K and the H sound, you have Khet. Khet. The CH sound, as in the word Bach, the German word Bach. Bach. That Khet. As if you want to say aha, but almost like a hard aha. Aha. Khet. You need to practice on how to pronounce this letter. Khet. Khet. And this is how Khet is written. Notice on the top left side, the line goes beyond a bit. Take note of that. Our next letter is letter number 9 and is Tet. Tet. Tet sounds like the way you pronounce it. It has a T sound. T as in the word tap. T as in the word tap or tea. And notice how it's written. This is how Tet is written. It's more like you're writing U, but on top right it makes a 10, a turning inside. Our next word is Yod. 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 Yod has a Y sound. It's a Y as in the word yet. So it has a Y sound, and that is Y as in the word yet. And just a point on the letter Yod. The letter Yod is unique because it's the smallest letter on the Hebrew alphabet. This is the smallest letter on the Hebrew alphabet. And notice how it's written. It's almost as if you're writing a comma, but it's above the line. Our next word is letter number 11, which is Kaf. Kaf. And Kaf sounds like the way you pronounce it. It has the K sound. K as in key. Kaf. Kaf. And again, on this letter you must pay attention because as you can see, there are 2 letters on the screen. And so I'll explain why there are 2 letters on the screen. And for some letters on the Hebrew alphabet, you see them having 2 letters or 2 forms. The first form and the second form. There are 5 letters on the Hebrew alphabet that have a different form. And this different form is found at the end of the word than when the letter is used on the middle or at the start of the word. Let me explain. When Kaf is used at the end of the word, it will have this form. But when Kaf is used to start a word at the beginning of a word, it will have this form. Though it's not similar, it's more like in English where you're beginning a sentence, you have to start with a capital letter, and when you're ending a sentence or on the middle or towards the end of the sentence, anywhere else you can use a small letter. But in Hebrew, some letters have 2 forms. When they're starting a word, you use the first form. But when you're ending a word, you always use the last form. And this first form can be used when you're beginning a word or when the letter is used in between, in the middle or anywhere else. But always at the end you use the last form. And this last form in Hebrew is called the Sofit. Sofit form. So Sofit simply means the final form. So when we say the Sofit form, we're talking about the final form. The final form of Kaf, for example, in this case. So Kaf is the first among the 5 letters of the Hebrew alphabet that has the first and final form. The first form is here and the final form is here. The first form looks like a C, only that it looks like a twisted C. And here you have the final form. So you can see here on the screen how the first form is written like a C. And you can see how the final form is written. And notice that the final forms go below the line. When you have 2 lines, when you're writing letters, you have 2 lines. The first form almost touches the bottom and top lines, but the final form goes slightly below the line. So as you are learning the Hebrew alphabet, please notice that some letters have 2 forms. One form when they're beginning or in between, and the final form, the Sophit form, when they're at the end of the word. And this is the letter Kaf, Kaf, having K sound. The next letter is letter number 12, and that is Lamed, Lamed, Lamed. Lamed is unique because it's the tallest letter rising above the line. You can see how it's written there. Lamed rises above the line. It goes above the top line. And Lamed is pronounced as the English letter L, as in the word lamb, lamb, or look. That's the letter Lamed, Lamed. Our next letter is letter number 13. Remember there are 22 letters. And letter number 13 is Mem, Mem. And again, from the pronunciation, you can tell how the letter is pronounced. It has the M sound, M. It's M as in map, map. And again, notice on the screen that there are 2 forms. You have the normal form and the Sophit form, the final form. Remember, Sophit means final, the final form. So you have the first form and the Sophit form, the final form. When you look at the first form, it almost looks like M, only that it bends at the bottom there. So notice how the 2 are written. Notice how the first form is written. And just try to follow along. And notice how the final form, the Sophit form, is written. Almost as if you're writing a box, but it protrudes on top there. And for some of these letters, there will be similarities, and at the end, we'll look at which letters are similar and which letters are different. So Mem sounds like M, Mem. Let's move on. Our next letter is Nun, Nun. And Nun sounds like N. It's N sound as in the word net, net. And again, notice that there are 2 forms. Nun is the third among 5 letters that have final forms. So we'll still be looking at 2 other letters that have Sophit forms or final forms. Nun is the third letter among the 5 letters that have final forms. And this is how Nun is written. This is how you write the first form. And this is how the final form is written. Notice it's going beyond the line. It's going below the line. As I said, most of the final forms are going to go below the line, apart from Mem. All the other forms, all the other 4 forms are going to be going below the line. So you have the first form and you have the final form. Notice that for most of the final forms that we have looked at, it's as if you're just taking this line that has bent and extending it, straightening it. You simply take the line that is bent and extend it, just straighten it. Instead of turning it, you straighten it. So notice how it's written and practice. We move on to letter number 15, and that is Samek. 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 This letter has S sound, is S sound as in the word sit. Sit. Samek. It looks similar to mem, the final form for mem, but they're different. Because this one is not boxed. It has no corners like the mem that we looked at. This one is almost round. This is how Samek is written. As if you're writing O, but on top the line is a bit straight and it goes beyond a bit. That is very important. The corners are smooth, and that is Samek. The next letter is letter number 16, and that is Ayin. 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 If you remember, I said there are two letters on the Hebrew alphabet that are silent. We have the first letter, which is Aleph. Aleph is silent. It takes its sound from the vowels that are with it. And the second letter on the Hebrew alphabet that is silent is Ayin. Ayin. Ayin is silent, meaning that it has no sound of its own. It carries the sound from the vowels that are under or next to it. This is Ayin. Ayin. Follow along on how to write it, know the name, know how to pronounce it, and how to write it. These are two most important things on the Hebrew alphabet: how to write it and how to pronounce it. But when you're writing Ayin, Ayin is almost like a U that extends on the left side. And this is Ayin. Our next letter is Pe. 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 And Pe sounds like P. That's that P sound. It's P as in put. P sound as in put. Or P sound as in people. And you can see that Pe has two forms. You have the first form and the final form. You have the first form and the Sophit form. The Sophit form, the final form. And you can see that for most of the final forms, you create them by extending this tilted line. You just extend it. The moment you extend it, you have created the final form. So this makes it easier to learn how to write the first form and the final form. If you know how to write the first form, you simply extend this tilted line, and the moment you straighten it, you have written the final form for Pe. And this is how Pe is written. This is how you write the first form. As if you're writing Kaf, but on top the line is curving inside. And this is how the final form is written. The final form appears like a first form, but remember the final forms are curving downwards. Final forms cross below the line. So this is Pe with a P sound. And Pe is the fourth among the 5 letters that have final forms. Within the 22 letters, only 5 have final forms. So it's very easy to know them. Let's move on. Our next letter is Tzade. 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 Notice that I'm saying Tzade instead of Sade. It's not Sade, it's Tzade. There's that TS sound. Tzade. Sade has TS sound, as in the word hats. That Tsi is where Sade gets its sound. Or as in the word cats. That TS sound is where Sade gets its sound. Is how you pronounce the letter Sade. Sade. And notice that Sade also has a final form. Tzade also has a final form. And again, it's almost as if you are straightening that tilted line and making it straight. You are getting that tilted line and making it straight to create the final form. And so if you know the first form, to come up with the Sophit form, the final form, you just get the tilted line and make it straight. So this is the letter Sade. Tzade. And this is how Tzade is written. This is how you write the first form. And when you're writing Sade, you start as if you are writing S and then you attach that line. You start as if you are writing S and then you attach that line. And this is how you write the second form, the final form. Remember that it comes below the line. That is very important for final forms. Our next letter, which is letter number 19, is the letter Qaf. 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 Qaf has the Q sound. It has the Q sound. It's Q as in the word, the English word Q. It's Q sound as in the word Q. So that's the Q sound. That's Qaf. Qaf. And again, learn how to write it. And this is how you write Qaf. You start with a line and then you join with that top line. But notice that gap on top and the gap here. That top line is not touching the straight line. And again, notice that Qaf is going below the line, slightly below the line. Not like final forms, but Qaf goes slightly below the line. That is very important. Our next word is Resh. 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 Resh has the ara sound. It's ara as in the word red. It's ara as in the word red. So Resh is similar to the ara in English. It has the ara sound. And this is similar to how you write the letter Dalet, but notice that its elbow is smooth. It was making a corner, but for Resh, the elbow is smooth. That is how you differentiate Resh from Dalet. Our next letter is letter number 21, and that is Sin. 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 As if you want to say sin. Somebody has sinned. Sin. And sin has S sound. Sin has S sound. If you remember, I said there are other letters on the Hebrew alphabet that have similar sound. We talked about Samek, and Samek has S sound. Also, Sin has S sound. So it's S as in the word sit. Sit. That's sin. That S sound. And notice how you write it. It's as if you want to write a U, but it has a line on the middle and a dot on the left side. And this is very, very important. This is very, very important to knowing how to write sin, because the next letter is very similar to this letter. Actually, they are the same. The only difference is that dot on top there. That dot is the only difference. Where you place it is what makes this letter here sin and the next letter different. So this letter here is sin. And notice how it's written like a U with a line on the middle and a dot on top, on the top left. Very important, on the top left. And here's what I'm talking about. Our next letter is Shin. Shin. It's Shin with SH sound, as in the word shout. Shout. You can see the difference in how you write it, that the only thing that has changed is the dot on top. Sin, the previous letter, had a dot on top left. Shin, this letter here, has a dot on top right. Top right, Shin. Top left, Sin. Maybe a statement that can help you learn the difference is that sin is not right, it's left. Sin is not right, it's left. Meaning that the dot on sin is placed on top left, not right. So, sin, the letter is not right, it's left. Where you place the dot on top right is shin. The pronunciations are different. This is shin, that is sin. That had S sound. This has SH sound, as in the word shout. So when you're reading the Hebrew, these two letters are very easy to confuse. Shin and sin. Sometimes you say sin when in actual sense it's shin, or vice versa. So it's very important to differentiate the two. This is shin. The previous one was sin. written the same except the dot that is put on the top right. Let's move on. So far we looked at 21 letters. Our last letter on the Hebrew alphabet is the letter Tau. 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 It's Tau with a W sound at the end, not Tav. It's Tau. And that is a T sound as in the word tap. Tap. So we have Tau, that T sound. This is how Tau is written. Tau is written like Chet. The only difference with this is that, first of all, the line on top is going to go beyond a bit. And then as you are coming down, it makes a turning. That is very important for Tau. As you are coming down, it's going to make a turning. That turn is very important. Let's go through the Hebrew alphabet, the entire alphabet. One thing that you notice, that you have to notice, is that, as we said it, in Hebrew, you write from right going to the left. Notice the arrow, right going to the left. Right going to the left. That is how you write in Hebrew. And even when you are reading a sentence, you are reading a sentence from the right side going to the left side. That's why you're seeing the first letters are on the right and the last letters are on the left. So let's try to pronounce the letters together. The first letter is Aleph, Aleph. And we said the sound is silent. Aleph has no sound. The next letter is Bet, Bet, B sound. The next letter is Gimel, Gimel, with a G sound. The next letter is Dalet, Dalet, with D sound. The next letter is Hey, Hey, with H sound. The next letter is Wow, Wow, with a W sound. The next letter is Zayin, Zayin, with a Z sound. The next letter is Chet, Chet. This is the one that you need to learn how to pronounce the most. Chet. And Chet is pronounced with almost like a CH sound, but it's not CH sound. Almost like a CH sound. Chet. The next letter is Tet, Tet, Tet. And Tet has a T sound. The next letter is Yod. As you can see there, Yod is the smallest letter on the Hebrew alphabet. Yod is the smallest letter on the Hebrew alphabet. It's almost like a comma, but it's above the line. It's written above the line. That is Yod. Yod with Y sound. We have Kaf, and Kaf has K sound. Then we have Lamed. Lamed has L sound. Then we have Mem. Mem. Mem has M sound. Then we have Nun. Nun. Nun has N sound. N sound. Then we have Samek. Samek. Samek has S sound. Then we have Ayin. Ayin. Ayin is silent just like Aleph. So Ayin and Aleph are two silent letters on the alphabet. They have no sound. Then we have Pe. Pe. Pe has P sound. And then we have Tzade. Tzade. Tzade has TS sound. And then we have Kof. Kof. Kof has Q sound. Then we have Resh. Resh. Resh has R sound. Then we have Sin. You can see there Sin and Shin. Those are two very similar letters on the Hebrew alphabet. You need to learn how to differentiate them. Sin is not right, it's left. The dot on Sin is not on the right, it's on the left. So Sin is not right, it's left. So you have Sin, and Sin has S sound, and you have Shin with a dot on the right. Shin has SH sound. SH sound. Then the last letter we have tau. Tau. Tau has T sound. Tau has T sound. Here are some things to note. There are 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and some of the letters are similar. You can even tell some of the letters are similar and some are different. And so we'll look at these lookalikes. We'll look at the letters that are looking alike and see how to differentiate them. Notice that Lamed is the only letter that is going up above the line. If you had two lines that are crossing, like in a book, Lamed will be written with a line that is crossing above the line. And always practice writing these Hebrew letters with two lines, a line on top and a line down. That will guide you on how the actual Hebrew letter is written, how it sits on the two lines. Some are having a line that is crossing below the line. Only Lamed is only letter that is crossing above the line. And notice that Kof is the only letter that is crossing below the line. So two letters, you have Lamed and Kof. Kof is protruding slightly below the line, and Lamed is going slightly above the line. And notice that, again, Yod is the smallest letter on the Hebrew alphabet. Learn how to pronounce them, learn how to write them. Always use those two imaginary lines. Remember, you read and write Hebrew from right to left. And something to notice while you're looking at the Hebrew alphabet, if you have learned Greek or the Greek alphabet, you will note some similarities with the Hebrew alphabet, because both the Greeks and the Israelites got their alphabet from the Phoenicians. And later we get our English alphabet from the Greeks through Latin. So let me say it this way. Both the Greek alphabet and the Hebrew alphabet are coming from the Phoenician alphabet, from the Phoenicians. And that's why you're seeing some similarities between the three alphabets, the Hebrew alphabet, the Greek alphabet, and our English alphabet, because they're coming from the same source, the Phoenicians. As we are talking about the Hebrew alphabet, there is something that is very, very important in learning how to pronounce the letters. On the Hebrew alphabet, there are 6 letters that have 2 ways of pronouncing them. So what is the Begat Kefat? The word Begat Kefat is just an acronym. It comes from the 6 Hebrew consonants or the 6 Hebrew letters that change their sound depending on whether they have a dot inside them or not. And these 6 consonants or these 6 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are, we have Beit, we have Gimel, we have Dalet, we have Kaf, we have Pei, we have Tau. The 6 Hebrew consonants that have 2 ways of pronouncing them, when they have a dot and when they don't have a dot. We have Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Kaf, Pei, and Tau. And the word Begat Kefat is simply an acronym to help us remember these 6 letters. If you can see there, those that are capitalized, those are the letters that we're talking about. The Beit, B, the Gimel, G, the Dalet, D, the Kaf, K, the Pei, F, and I'll explain why it's F there, and lastly the Tau, T. Now let me say it again. These 6 consonants, these 6 letters, have 2 ways of pronouncing them. When they have a dot inside, it's different on how you pronounce them as compared to when they don't have a dot inside. The dagesh is simply a dot that you put in the 6 consonants, these Begat Kefat letters. The dot that you put in these 6 consonants to change their sound is called dagesh. It's called a dagesh. Here is how it affects pronunciation. And I want you to pay attention on this, because this is very important in letting you know how to pronounce Hebrew words. Specifically, it's going to let you know on how to pronounce these 6 consonants. So here is how this dot works, and here is how the dot affects pronunciation. Let's look at the bottom. we have 4 letters that have a dot in them, and on the right side we have 4 letters that don't have a dot in them. Let's look at the first line. We have bet. We have bet with a dot and we have bet without a dot. So when bet is having a dot, a dagesh inside it, you pronounce it as B. B sound. B as in boy. That's the pronunciation. The normal pronunciation of bet is only read like that when bet is having the dagesh, the dot. But when bet has no dagesh, pronunciation changes. Instead of saying B, you say V. And the pronunciation is going to be like V sound as in the word vine, because the bet has no dagesh. The dagesh is a dot that gives the bet the hard sound, the B sound. Next example is kaf. When kaf has a dot, it's pronounced like a normal K. It's K sound as in the word king. But when kaf has no dot, it's almost the same sound as chet. Chet. You remember that letter? Chet. So it's almost that same sound as chet when kaf has no dagesh. When it has a dagesh, it's K. When it doesn't have a dagesh, it's that CH sound as if you want to say chet. Chet. The next example is pay. When pay has a dagesh, it's pronounced as a normal P. Remember, pay has a P sound, and when it's having a dagesh, that dot is pronounced with a P. P as in the word put. Put. But when pay has no dagesh, the sound changes. Instead of saying P, instead of pronouncing it as P, you pronounce it as F. As F. So it's going to be F as in the word phone. That F sound, that PH sound or F sound, which are basically the same. So you're going to pronounce it with the F sound as in the word phone. Phone. When it's liking a dagesh. The last example that I can give there is the letter tau. Tau. When tau has a dagesh, it takes the sound of T, the normal sound of T. T as in the word two. But when tau has no dagesh, the sound changes. Instead of pronouncing it as T, you pronounce it as TH. As if you want to say thin. That TH sound is how you pronounce tau without a dagesh. Now you can see that the dagesh is very important. The dagesh is only put in these 6 consonants. Bet, gimel, dalet, kaf, pei, tau. These are the only consonants that change their sound based on whether or not they have this dot called dagesh. The rest of the other consonants are pronounced the way you are learning how to pronounce them. But for these ones, when they have a dagesh, hard sound, the normal sound, when they don't have the dagesh, what we can call the abnormal sound, the soft sound. Now you can see that there are 6 letters there, but I've only showed you the 4 letters. So you're wondering, where is the dalet and where is gimel? Now the reason I've left out dalet and gimel is that the difference between when these 2 letters have a dagesh and when they don't have a dagesh, the difference in how you pronounce them, there is no difference. So for those 2 letters, when they have a dagesh or when they don't have a dagesh, pronounce dalet with a D sound and pronounce gimel with a G sound, with or without the dagesh. But these 4 letters that are presented are the ones that have the difference in how you pronounce it when they have a dagesh and when they are lacking the dagesh. So when you're reading Hebrew words, pay attention to the dot. This dot is very important in pronunciation. We're going to look at this dot in detail when we look at the syllabification, when we look at the accent marks. But for now, know that the dot makes the hard sound, the normal sound, and when there is no dot, it makes the abnormal sound or the soft sound. Remember, the Begat Kefat letters are 6 Hebrew consonants or 6 Hebrew letters that change their sound depending on whether they have a dagesh, the dot inside them, or the dagesh is not present. Let's move on. Let's again look at the final forms, the Sophit forms. Remember, final forms are called Sophit forms. So I said that there are 5 letters out of the Hebrew letters, out of the 22 letters, there are 5 letters that have a final form called Sophit that are written in 2 ways. The regular form on top there, that form is only written when you're starting a word. If you want to write kaf, okay, at the end of the word, you're going to use this final form. If you want to write mem at the end of the word, you're going to use this mem. When you want to write nun at the end of the word, you're going to use this nun. If you want to write pay at the end of the word, you're going to use this pay. If you want to write tzade at the end of the word, you're going to use this tzade. Notice that apart from just mem, all the other final forms are going to come down slightly below the line. And again, notice that how they are formed is simply by extending the curved part, the curved bottom part. To form the final form, you simply extend the curved bottom part. The kaf, you extend it, you form the final kaf. The nun, you extend that part, you form the final nun. The pay, you extend that part, you form the final pay. And the tzade, you extend that part, you form the final tzade. That's how you form the final forms. They are built from the normal forms, from the first forms, from the regular forms. Now let's look at this and actually see how it applies on actual Hebrew words. For example, let's look at kaf in this final letter. Let's look at that word there. Now, don't worry about how it's pronounced. You're going to learn that in the next chapter. That word there is melek. Melek. You can see that you have M-L-K. Or in short, you have mem, lamed, and kaf. As you're looking at that last letter there, the kaf that is being used there is a final kaf and not the first form. Why? Because at the end of the word, when you're at the end of the word and you want to use kaf, you use the final form, not the first form. Another example is mem. Let's come to mem. Mem has 2 forms. You have the first form and the final form. Let's look at the word. That Hebrew word is mem, simply mem. Alright? You can see that there are 2 mems there. You have the first mem when you're starting a word. That's the one that you use. But at the end of the word, you use the final form, the final mem. Another example is ben. This Hebrew word is ben. Don't worry about how to pronounce the word. You're going to learn that in the next chapter when you look at the vowels. Look at the last letter there. You have beit and nun. Beit and nun. Look at the nun there. The nun that is used is the one that, the final form because you're at the end of the word. Another example is this word here. When you're looking at the pay, regular form and final form, you have this word here, Yosef. Yosef. And Yosef simply means Joseph. So when you're looking at this word, focus on the final letter. You have pay, but notice that we're using the final form, pay, instead of the regular form, because it's at the end of the word. The last example there is mitzvah. Mitzvah. Notice I'm saying mitzvah, but there's no W there, because wow simply is pronounced as W, that W sound. Focus on the letter tzade. You have mem, tzade, wow, hey. Mem, tzade, wow, hey. You have that tzade there. Is that tzade that is used there regular form or the final form? Yes, it's a regular form. Why? Again, because it's in between a word. It can be at the beginning of a word or in between a word. As long as it's not at the end of the word, we can use a regular form. Regular form is used any place on the word as long as it's not at the end of the word. at the end of the word, we have to use the final form. Okay, as in that example there, this Hebrew word here, eretz. First of all, you have Aleph, Resh, and yes, and Sade. That last letter there is Sade. Is it the final form or the regular form? Good. It's a final form. It's a final form. Why? Good. Ayin, we at the end of the word. So they are called final because they are only found at the end. Final at the end. Sofit, ending. Okay? That's why they're called sofit or final, because they're only found at the end of the word. So, you need to know these final forms because when you're writing Hebrew or when you're pronouncing Hebrew, they may confuse you, wondering what is going on, why the letters are changing, but they're not changing. They're simply using the final forms. And you always see these at the end of the word. Remember, the final forms are 5. You need to know them. We have Kaf, Mem, Nun, Pe, Sade. Kaf, Mem, Nu, Pe, Sade. If you have to make a song, make a song. If you have to use mnemonics, whatever you have to do to know Hebrew, just do it. Use everything that you can use. Okay, interact with it. That will help you to appreciate the Hebrew and to know it better. Now, let's come to another part that is very important. And that is where we look at the lookalikes. The lookalikes. These are letters that are looking alike. And these can easily confuse you when you're reading. When you're looking at the Hebrew, they can easily confuse you. So let's look at the letters that are looking alike. The lookalikes. So the first team, the first group of letters that look alike, we have Sade and Ayin. Sade and Ayin. You can see how you write them. They are almost similar in how you write them, but here's the difference. Look at the screen. When you're writing Sade, it's as if you're writing S and then it turns under there, and then you have that line. But when you're writing Ayin, Ayin is almost like a U that extends on the left side. That's the difference. There's that gap in Sade that is not there in Ayin. Okay, so that's the difference between Ayin and Sade. The next set of lookalikes, we have Waw and Zayin. Now, Waw is just a line that is coming down. But when you're writing Zayin, Zayin is a line that is crossing and a line that is coming down. So it's almost as if you want to write a T, capital T, but the line is bent. So those differences are very important. Another set of lookalikes, we have Waw and the final form Nun. Remember, these final forms are going to have longer lines than the normal letters. They're going to have lines that protrude below the line than the normal letters. So we have Waw and Nun. Where is the difference? The difference is Waw is a short letter. Meanwhile, Nun, the final Nun, has a line that protrudes. All of them have almost same bending on top there, but down there, Nun has a longer line. Another group of lookalikes, we have the final form Kaf and Dalet. The final form Kaf and Dalet. When you look at them, they are almost exactly the same. The only difference is this is Kaf, its final form. Remember, final forms have longer lines, and here you have Dalet. This is Dalet and this is Kaf. The final Kaf has a line that goes below the line as compared to Dalet. Dalet stays within the line. Another set of lookalikes, we have Kaf, the normal Kaf, the regular Kaf, and Bet. Kaf and Bet. When you look at Kaf, it's almost similar to Bet, but the difference is that under there, Bet makes a corner, and that line under the baseline protrudes slightly. But Kaf has smooth corners. Another set of lookalikes, we have Mem, the final form Mem, and Samek. Final form Mem and Samek, they almost look the same. But here's the difference. Here you have the final form Mem. The difference is that final form for Mem is boxed, almost boxed, has corners under there. It has corners. But Samek is rounded. It's almost rounded. It has smooth corners. So when you're writing S, which is Samek, you use almost as if you want to write an O, but it's not like an O. Has smooth corners. But when you're writing Mem, Mem has corners. It has corners. Another set of lookalikes, we have Resh and Dalet. Resh and Dalet. I know even as you're trying to pronounce them, you're already trying to mix them up, but practice how to tell the difference and practice how to write them. Very soon you're going to differentiate these two letters. This one is Resh and this one is Dalet. Where is the difference? It's how you write them. Resh is written like that, comes down smoothly without making a turn there, without making a corner. But for Dalet, you come like that and make a corner like that. So it's important that you learn to write the letters correctly, because if you don't write them correctly, they are going to confuse you. The other set of confusing letters, we discussed them already. We have Sin and Shin. This is Sin, this is Shin. What's the difference? They are exactly the same. The only difference is where you put the dot. If you put the dot on the left, Sin, you're creating Sin. If you put the dot on the right, you're creating Shin. As I said it, Sin is not right, it's left. The dot for Sin is not on the right, it's on the left. That's a better way of helping you remember. Another set of confusing letters, lookalikes. The top there we have 3. Hey and Chet and Tau. We have Hey and Chet and Tau. Where is the difference? The difference is here. When you're writing Hey, between Hey, Chet and Tau, Hey has a gap. It has a gap, an open space there. But when you're writing Chet, Chet has no space. You just attach the top line with the 2 lines that are coming down. Okay, it has no space. Now, when you're writing Tau, Tau is written like Chet, but down there it has bending a 10 all the time. When you're writing Chet, they're just straight lines without space. But when you're coming to Tau, when you're writing it like this, you bend there. That is how you write Tau. Coming down, you have 3 letters that are the same. We almost talked about them. You have Dalet, you have Resh, you have final Kaf. Dalet, Resh, final Kaf. Remember, final letters, Sofit letters, have a line that protrudes down. So, just to remind you quickly, Sofit letters, when you see them, they have a line that protrudes down. So this is Dalet, this is Resh, and this is Kaf. What's the difference between Dalet and Resh? The difference is that Dalet has a curve on top there. It has that corner. Resh has a smooth turning. That's where the difference is. And the final Kaf has a line that is protruding, coming below the line. That's where the difference is. So these are the lookalikes. You need to know them, you need to know them, and you need to know them. Otherwise, you're going to always be conflicting. You're going to always be guessing how to pronounce them. You're always going to be mistaking them for other words and mispronouncing them. Know them, practice, practice, practice. Practice how to write them. Practicing is how you learn the alphabet. In the next lecture, we're going to be looking at vowels, and that lecture is very important to allow you to pronounce Hebrew words. So see you in our next lecture. Shalom.